Hi everyone, today we're going to be looking at BrushHand's latest feature, which is the Personal Painters Index, or PPI. Now this has been developed by BrushHand as a way of tracking your staff's performance, as well as being able to measure them across your team regardless of pay rate. So this calculation is based off their speed and how quickly they can paint substrates. It's an average down through their pay rate, so you can have a look directly and see which of your staff members are your highest performing, regardless of what kind of pay rate they're on, and you'll be able to see which one's their speed on each substrate. So we're getting some really interesting metrics out of this, and we're really excited to be able to implement this feature into BrushHand. For today, I'm just going to show you very quickly how to use the PPI. It is a really easy setup if you are already running through your staff through BrushHand, as well as using Custom Metre Rates through your quoting. So to access this under My Company and then the staffing panel, we have a staff performance tab, and this will be where all your data is for the PPI. So from an employer's perspective, which is the page I'm on here now, we've got a little description up the top here on PPI, as well as what each of the fields mean in terms of what kind of data these fields here that we're seeing are storing. We also have the selection, so the custom meter rates that I've selected to use for the PPI. And then we have our staff entries down the bottom here, as well as a ranked chart on the side here. So you can see their average PPI and their ranking across the team. So to set this one up, we need to make sure we have staff entered into BrushHand with their total per hour rate. And then the second thing we need is your custom meter rate selection that you want to use for the PPI. So these are your rates that you want your staff to be measured against. Now, if you're already using custom meter rates, which highly recommend you do if you are using BrushHand for quoting, it's how you're going to get the most accurate quotes. All you need to do is select the one that you wish to use for the PPI. So I've just hit edit on this existing entry, and I've made sure it's ticked the use for PPI button here, which this one is. And we can save that, and it will appear on your dashboard so you can see what rates that your staff are actually being compared to, which I've got sitting up here. Now, before we go further into the employer's side of things, we're going to jump over to a staff members portal so I can show you it from start to finish. Now, on a staff members portal, they still have their timesheets overview, but they now have a PPI tab as well. And this one here is going to show them their entries. They can add an entry and edit if it hasn't already been approved. And they've got their average PPI and their highest PPI to date sitting on the side here. So they can have a look at their own performance as well. To add an entry, it's very similar to your custom meter rates. We do have a few things to assist them in this process though. So I'm going to select new entry. And from here, we have a little calculator at the top. We understand that sometimes the rate calculation might be a bit much and we want to ensure accuracy. These do go through an approval process as well for you, so you can make sure that they're not entering in any ridiculous numbers. But we have the calculator at the top here. So each of our substrates are marked as to what kind of, whether they're an per hour based, or if they're a linear meters or a meters squared based substrate. Let's say they wanted to measure themselves on this substrate here, so the gyprock plus a brush and roll. All they need to do is enter in how many meters squared they painted and how long it took them in minutes. And it's going to give them their rate, which is this one here. And this is the rate that BrushHand works to, that you will be familiar with if you're using custom meter rates. I'm going to round this one off. So I can pop that one in here. Now, if they were doing something like doors, which is how many hours it took them per door or how many minutes per door. So here we're going to put in, it took them 40 minutes to paint one door. So that's 0.67 hours. So they can just copy this one here and pop that into their door substrate. Now we do have prime first coat and second coat set up. They don't have to use all of those, and they can fill out as many or as little substrates as they like. They can also choose to save it as a draft, which you'll be able to see that it's saved as a draft for them. and they can keep working on it throughout the week, or they could do it in a day. Just depends on what you're after, what your directive is to your staff with this performance tracking software. So let's say I'm happy with entering those in. I can scroll to the bottom and I can submit this one. Now, upon submission, this one will go in as pending approval. This means that they can edit those entries while it is pending approval. However, it will show up on your dashboard as well that you have one sitting there pending approval. So if they wanted to continue working on it, I'd recommend them saving it as a draft, so it indicates to you that they're still working on it. Pending approval usually means they're just waiting for you to approve it. So that would be my suggestion for this setup. So onto the employer side, we've got this one here, which we can see is now pending approval. And I'm just going to select approve. And once it has been approved, this is when it'll pass through to their averages and it'll contribute to their score on your panel as well. So I'm just going to give this one a little refresh. It's being a bit slow because I've got two at once. So we can see here we've got our new entry. Now these fields here, I'll run through these quickly. We have the field count. So this is how many data entry points they used across the form. So you can see this one here was 2. We had 6 on the one that we just did. So you can see how many substrates they're covering in that form. You might set a minimum requirement for them. You can say, hey guys, if you're using PPI, I want you to fill out at least 12 fields for data entry points for PPI, and you can make that rule across the board for your staff if you like. The second column we've got is their base PPI. So this is their score measured against your rates. So how they are comparing to your rates without factoring in the rest of the team so far. And these are usually the higher the better. Any score around 100 or above 100 is really good. So if you can look at it that way, almost like a handicap, that's what our base PPI is. Then we have the actual PPI. This is where it averages out your staff's pay rates as a team, and then inserts a metric for their pay rate to give them a fair score across the team. So your higher paid staff should be performing better or have faster rates than your lower paid staff. This is where you can actually directly see that. When we were running the mathematics for this, we had one test where a higher paid painter was a little bit slower than the lower paid painter, and the score directly reflect that. It also reflects if they're, say your lower paid painter is painting walls at 15 meters squared per hour and your higher paid painter is painting them at 16 meters squared per hour. It'll factor in that maybe that's not a big enough difference that it should be for that kind of pay jump, and it'll reflect it in the score. So I'm not a painter, but some really interesting metrics you're going to get out of this, and Nigel will be explaining these in further videos if you wanted to check out our socials. I'm just jumping on to show you how to use it today. We're very excited to be able to launch this, and we hope it's helpful across your businesses. Thank you for watching.